Hey there, creepy peeps. My name is Nightmare Maven and I love talking about horror. This is Daisy, who insisted on being in here while I film this intro. Isn't that right? If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. So happy you found my channel. Hopefully you stick around for a little bit. For those of you that are returning, welcome back. I'm very happy to see you again. Are you excited? I think she's just more excited that I have 3 days off from work to hang out with her. You know I'm gonna be reading those 3 days, right? Like it's not all about you. I don't think you fully comprehend that. So I'm finally reading It by Stephen King. I have the next 3 days off of work, of which I am dedicating to finishing this book. I have tried to read it many times and I keep DNFing it because it's like at a certain point, I'll probably stop at that point in the video when I finally get past it and talk about it. And I had given up for a while, but I was like, I really want to read it. And since I won't be at work these next 3 days, if you could just help your girl out, even if you don't want to watch this video all the way through, just put me on mute and like let the video run and go do something else. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Don't know how long this video is going to be. If you are going to sit through it, you're awesome. I love you. Grab a snack, get comfy, maybe put on it in the background while you're watching this. I don't know. Well, I marked it out. It's about 380 pages that I need to get through each day, which is absolutely doable. I've read more than that in a day before. So hopefully this will be the start of maybe reading a Stephen King every single month. I made a post about that and you guys gave me so many suggestions, but I feel like this is the best way to start that. Like just get the behemoth out of the way. And then everything else is smooth sailing, right? Just humor me. Right. Here we go. It's time. I'm ready to float. At the first interlude, and I've just gotten past all the like character introductions, like all of the characters receiving that call from Mike. I was reminded again of a few parts of like Stephen King's writing that I don't particularly like, at least in the 2 books that I've read of his, which I didn't say at the beginning of the video, are The Shining and The Outsider. I've talked about it before. I'm not a fan of the way he writes women and overweight people. It's because of like the almost obsessiveness with certain like descriptors. So like with any fat character, like I mean hell, the whole chapter with Eddie receiving the call, every time Marty is mentioned, there is something about her weight that is also mentioned, as if the reader is going to forget from like 2 lines ago where you also described her, or we're going to forget the full-on paragraph right when she's introduced all about how big she is. And then with the female characters, it's for whatever reason, no matter how minor the character is, we have to know what their tits look like. And this is coming from a lesbian, like weirdly, it's a hard concept to wrap your head around, but it weirdly doesn't factor into the story at all, you know? Who knew? If I can just keep complaining for a second. Bev's character. So when we're introducing all the characters, like it makes sense, like we're introduced to Stan first because he's like very much setting the tone for like how serious this phone call is and how serious it is that they all have to go back. So it makes sense, like that entire chapter is from the point of view of his wife, because we're setting up all this characterization of this like more or less happy life together, and it's, you know, it's gonna hurt really bad at the end when she finds him in the tub. That makes sense. And then every other character is from their own point of view, except for Bev, who the very first time we're meeting her, there's pages and pages that are all from her abusive husband. Is it her husband? I can't remember. It's from his point of view the entire time. So of course, him being just like this abusive sleazeball is saying like all these just awful, you know, sexist things about her. I feel like that tells you a lot, like how, like the importance of each character. So it tells you something that Stan's chapter is not from his point of view at all. So why isn't Bev's from hers? I don't fucking get it. So that's my only gripe so far. The early afternoon, it's just past 1 o'clock, so let's keep going. Let's keep reading. Made it to my first stop, which is chapter 9, cleaning up, for anybody that wants to I was gonna say follow along, but this is a pre-recorded video. So yeah, not surprisingly, not a whole lot that I wasn't aware of, if that makes sense. Like so far there hasn't been too many scenes that weren't either in the 2 feature films or the mini series. So, but so far so good. Like at least in terms of the scares. Again, a lot of it I'm familiar with. There were some new scenes that I hadn't seen before. I did make it past where I DNF'd last time. I'm pretty sure it was in here. It was like in the middle of, we're telling this story about a different Eddie and his brother, and at the canal, and there's like a part at the canal and Mike is passing by and then he remembers something that happened to him like the previous spring. It's with the bird or whatever. We're technically in a flashback, and this was like another flashback within the flashback, and I had totally forgotten like where we had started before like the bird story, and I was like, oh my god, like I just can't. So this is where I quit last time. I got farther than I remembered. For whatever reason I thought I had quit after like 20 pages or something, but I guess like compared to the actual length of the book, this might as well be 20 pages. I just want to point out too, because it just kind of hit me, like this is the most I will have ever spent on a book where I already know what happens. I did listen to the audiobook a little bit. I do want to shout it out though, because hold on, let me just pull up and get who's narrating it, because they're doing a fantastic job. The couple, oh no, it wasn't Libby, sorry, Libro app. It's read by Steven Weber, this one that I'm listening to. Definitely hats off for this audiobook. So if you are thinking about trying to read it and you're a big audiobook person, I would highly recommend that one. Okay, that's it. I just realized like how much I filmed today too, and I've got 2 more days of this, so I hope you're still cozy. I'll see you tomorrow for more It Day 2. Maybe during this little interlude, you know, more clips of me reading, super duper fascinating. I thought maybe I would just explain my annotating system real quick. See little page flags sticking out, those color coded page flags. That's my primary source of annotating. Not that I'm not a fan of highlighting or underlining, that's just not how I prefer to annotate. I think it comes from back in high school. I don't know if anybody else had to do this, but like in English classes in high school, they like graded you on annotating. Like you would have to write your name on the side of the book, like on the pages, and every so often you would literally turn in your book and they would check everything read so far to see if you actually like highlighted and wrote in the book, which I thought was so stupid. Like why force people to annotate a certain way for a grade? It's silly. I am much more a fan of these little page flags, and I prefer to just like take notes on the side. So I have like a little notebook that I'll just like jot down any thoughts or anything I want to remember. So the blue ones are for plot stuff, green characters, the pink ones is to mark particular passages about like the setting that I think are either important or I just really like that it, you know, it just depends on how I feel when I'm, you know, reading. Yellow is for like syntax and like sentence structure and things like that, like interesting or noteworthy ways that like the book is actually like written. And then orange, because I read a lot of horror books, so this doesn't apply to everything, but I usually use that to mark particularly like dark and scary moments. I do highlight and like maybe underline stuff occasionally. If I do, that's usually just like a personal favorite. Like it doesn't matter what genre I'm reading. If I'm reading something that like a line or a passage really speaks to me and I really like the way it's written, or I really connect with the words that are written, I'll maybe highlight some stuff, but that's always just like personal favorite stuff that usually doesn't have anything to do with me reviewing anything. I finished the little second leg of my reading, so I've read this much so far. We got this much tomorrow. I'm at, for anybody who's familiar with the book, or if you have it and you just want to see where I am, I'm ending day 2 at chapter 16, Eddie's Bad Break. I'm realizing like how well the movie did like adapting that instead of like jumping back and forth 5 million times like this is doing, but it works fine for the book. I'm not like criticizing the book because of that. It works fine now that I'm used to it. I think that's what made me quit the last time. Like it just felt like too much. But I was expecting it this time. I'm used to it definitely by now, having read this much. Really like all of the extra stuff we get with each character. Like it's a bit tedious, but like for every like flashback that one character has, all the other Losers Club members have to have a flashback as well. So it gets a little bit tedious, but you get a whole lot more scares. For one, there's a whole lot more scary shit going on than we see in the miniseries or in the movie. It's a bit more about the town of Derry, which I'm finding I like the most. And I think it's the interludes. It's from like the diary that Mike is keeping, in like older Mike is keeping kind of before he decides to call everybody back. He's like recalling all of these like interviews and all this research he's done about some of the other like horrible things that have happened in Derry's past, so we get to hear about them in a lot more detail than we do in the miniseries or in the movie. And even now we just kind of ended with a little bit too. The last part I read right before I stopped is when they're like doing the smoke thing and like Mike and Richie like have like a vision of it coming to Earth for the very first time, which they're just kids, so it's nothing specific, but you know, it's that realization that it has been here for way longer than they imagined even in the first place, leading up into what I imagine hopefully soon is either of their battles. I don't know if this is gonna flick back and forth between the kids fighting it for the first time and then the adults. I kind of have a feeling that's gonna happen. So it makes it a lot more tense and scary going into it, knowing they're fighting something so old. And that's something that I feel like isn't, I don't want to say it's not communicated in either adaptation, but I feel like I never really understood the gravity of how old it is supposed to be. My gripes with this remain the same. I just really don't like the way Stephen King writes female characters. And I know everyone's gonna say like, this was written in the 80s. I understand that. God damn it. Like Beverly is just, I'm so over how sexualized she is. Not only as an adult, but as an 11-year-old child, and there are parts that just make me want to vomit. I can chalk it up to it terrorizing her. I marked a particularly disturbing passage where she, you know, like it is terrorizing her, but it's as her father, like screaming at her how much, like, I beat you because I wanted to fuck you. I'm not gonna read the rest of it because it's really disgusting. Definitely got the point across with that first sentence. I don't know if I needed the rest of it. So this is part of the whole story with Beverly and when she's a kid, when she's 11 years old, and the voices down the drain and the blood and all that. She stood there for some time, her legs as cold as marble inside her jeans, her nipples feeling sharp enough and hard enough to cut paper, her lips dead dry. She waited for the voices. What part of that did we really not need? It's a child. It's an 11-year-old child, Stephen. Why? Unnecessary, and none of the boys are described that way ever. According to Storygraph, I just logged it in there, I am 67% of the way through this. I feel so weird because I feel like I need to start the outro, but it's not the real outro. I cannot wait to see how long this video is going to be and how few people watch it. So I'll see you tomorrow. Yay! It's day 3, Daisy! It's day 3! You don't seem as excited as I am. It is day 3 and the final day of me reading it. The idea of like trying to read a Stephen King book every month for like a year seems way less daunting if I don't have this behemoth like, you know, looming over me like, read me, read me. Emma, Spooky Astronauts, messaged me yesterday and reminded me. She asked me if I had gotten to the scene yet, the sex scene, which I have not. Like when the Losers Club defeat it as kids, they like all have sex with Beverly. That's all I know. I don't know the context of that. I don't know that there's any context to that that could make this not weird. But I'm sure to, when I realize this part is starting, when I get to it, I will definitely, you know, in true YouTuber fashion, turn on the camera. Excuse you. Hey, big ears. In true YouTuber fashion, I will make sure I record my reaction to that as I read it, because did it actually happen if I don't record it, right? So let's get started. Time for that scene. So far it looks like it lasts at least a page. I'm not looking forward to this, so I guess I'll just give you my reaction to it. I'm gonna play, hopefully I'm not gonna play the whole thing, I'll just give you my reaction, but I'll play this portion of the audiobook here.
Well, I can't! But she thinks part of him can, and wants to, because his trembling has stopped, and she feels something small and hard which presses against the right side of her belly. You can, she says, and pulls him down. The surface beneath her bare back and legs is firm, clayey, dry. Now she feels some pleasure, dim heat in her childish, unmatured sex, and she closes her eyes as Stan comes to her. She recognizes that it is too big. And is he too big? Can she take that into herself?
It's done. You know, I'm filming this as I just finished the book. I can already tell you right now, it's far too soon for me to give a rating for that. I don't know how I feel about it yet in that way, in order to, you know, in that way to like give it a number of what I would rate it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the themes. Otherwise, like, I wouldn't watch the miniseries and the movies as much as I do. So, you know, that idea of childhood trauma, how that echoes into adulthood, the kind of dark underbelly of like an otherwise like idyllic American like small town. The power of memory especially, which is a huge theme in this story. This idea of them being able to remember or not remember certain things, which I feel like just echoes kind of like childhood, because as you get older, I don't know about anybody else, but like my childhood memories, they don't like all completely go away like they do in the book, you know, like this, but they definitely become fuzzier, and then maybe only like certain stories kind of like I only remember like certain stories. But even so, like I couldn't tell you details, but I remember like the general feelings of like certain things that happened, which is super important. Sometimes can be scary, sometimes is like nice and heartwarming, and that's definitely what this book tackles in such a huge way. Between the two movies and the miniseries, they actually pretty much cover everything. For the most part. Really all I noticed that they did was kind of just change certain people's like encounters, you know, like all of the members of the Losers Club have like certain encounters, the certain things that they're scared of. Like the adaptations just kind of like move or like modify them slightly, but pretty much everything gets covered. I liked hearing like those other stories, the other like the things that happened to other residents of the town of Derry, because it was a lot more scary things. You got to see the way it affected and kind of really controlled the town. I like that aspect of the book, especially with the interludes. I think I talked about them yesterday or the day before. I really like the interludes. I really liked all of that. I'm still not a fan of the way he writes female characters. I'm not a fan of the way he writes overweight people. I know it's like an outdated thing at this point. I know it was written in the 80s, although I will argue that some of these things I read in The Outsider, which is not an old book. And that scene. Oh. As soon as I finished this, I went to look up to see like what the point of that scene was, because it's hard to understand like what the fuck the purpose of that was. Like I get it like in the plot they're like lost in the tunnels, and so Bev is like, I know, I'll have sex with everyone and that'll clear everybody's minds right up. I screenshot a quote from Stephen King real quick just about this as I was looking it up. He wrote, he said, and I quote, "I wasn't really thinking of the sexual aspect of it. The book dealt with childhood and adulthood, 1958, and grown-ups. The grown-ups don't remember their childhood. None of us remember what we did as children. We think we do, but we don't remember it as it really happened. Intuitively, the losers knew that they had to be together again. The sexual act connected childhood and adulthood. It's another version of the glass tunnel that connects the children's library and the adult library. Times have changed since I wrote that scene, and there is now more sensitivity to those issues." The act of sex is terrifying in a lot of ways to, you know, adolescents, people, you know, going through puberty. I get that, that's all well and good, and it was like the idea of like it being something beautiful to get out of this like really scary space that they're in, and I'm like, ugh. I'm just saying it's fucking weird. I think we can all agree that it's fucking weird. Cool? Cool. I feel like a giant weight has lifted off my shoulders now that I've read this. I'm not gonna promise that I'm ever gonna read that again, but hey, I can say that I've read it now. If you watch this entire video, you are the best. I love you. Even if you didn't, I still love you. I understand. Not that you're around to hear this right now. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please. It really helps me out. This took a long time to make. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a Creepy Peep today. I post 2 new videos a week, and I host a live stream pretty much every week also. I'll see you soon. Until then, stay strange. Bye. I'm gonna go float now.